Well, hi, and welcome to episode 97 of Level Up. 60 minutes of live Q&A where your answers, chats, and votes drive our show. A warm welcome to everyone who's joining on LinkedIn and YouTube today. Special request, please let us know where you're joining from, what your name is. We'd love for you to get involved. Put your questions into the chat and we'll get them over to the panel to answer. Now, Shanice, Ella, and Adriana are all online. So if you have anything to say, pop it in the chat. Please be interactive. We'd love to hear from you. We live stream on Mondays at 8 a.m., Fridays at 2 p.m. UK time to both YouTube and LinkedIn. Also, if your question is selected to put in, your name is going to appear in the credits. So be sure to get your questions in early. So today we're talking about how to build a culture of collaboration. It's something that's really highly desirable in pretty much any workplace, but it's quite often not achieved, and it's not easy to achieve. A collaborative culture is pretty much one where collaboration is regular and deliberate. It doesn't just occur. It's baked into the processes of how people do their work every day and into the attitudes that they bring back to the office. So joining us today, we have a highly experienced panel who are going to share their thoughts and experiences and how to take the next steps to help you achieve this. So welcome, panel. So first, I'd like to introduce and welcome Caroline Mouton. So Caroline is a first-time Level Up panelist. She is a senior privacy and information governance consultant. She focuses on bridging the gap between tech and non-tech, bringing together ExCo, IT, GRC, cyber, communication teams. Welcome, Caroline.
Hi, good morning, Nigel. Thank you very much for the introduction.
Our pleasure.
I have a long history in IT for my sins, and after 10 years discovered I prefer people to technology, although I love what technology can achieve. So I'm in a very nice space at the moment of helping people to collaborate and to understand each other. After many years in IT, I studied communications because I feel like that is literally the one missing key. And can you imagine? It is a skill we have to learn.
Thanks.
So thanks very much.
Thanks, Caroline. And so Shontelle Bryan joins us, I think, from Reading today. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Shontelle. And her expertise is in organizational change management and consulting, and of course, training. And in her practice, she predominantly works with corporate executives, helping them to realize their vision for the organization when new ways of working are implemented. So welcome, Shontelle.
Thank you, Nigel. Actually, I'm in London today. But I'm very happy to be a part of this panel, and I'm looking forward to the questions and engaging with the other panelists.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shontelle. And Mouton joins us from Prague. Mouton's also an independent professional, and he also helps companies solve problems and takes advantage of opportunities, not only in management of IT, but also the entire company. So welcome, Mouton.
Thank you, Nigel. Good morning, everybody from rainy Prague. Looking forward for discussion and your questions.
Fantastic. And returning to Level Up today is a Level Up veteran, Ron Leeman. Ron joins us from Thailand. He's got over 4 decades in the consulting experience in the areas of change transformation. I think he's hung up his consulting boots now in favor of providing training and acting as a trusted advisor to all matters related to change and transformation. So welcome, Ron.
You've just introduced me. Have I got anything else to say, Nigel? I don't think so.
Can't believe that.
All I can say is that Thailand's wet and windy and the sun's gone back down again. It was a little, the sun came out earlier on. Yes, I am. I've hung up my consulting boots, got fed up with traveling, and I now deliver change management training and trusted advice. Exactly spot on.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ron. And of course, our question master for today is Suchitra Jacob, and Suchitra joins us from the beautiful city of Bangalore. So welcome, Suchitra. May we have our first question?
Hi, Nigel, and hello, everyone. So our first question is from Melanie, who wants to know, I would like to define the operating principles for a collaborative environment for my team. Can you give me some examples on how to do this?
Okay, Ron, why don't you start us off on this, and then we'll go to Shontelle.
Yeah, it's always quite difficult putting together some operating principles, especially in relation to something like collaboration, because like collaboration is wide as you can make it. But I would say some principles, things like shared understanding of issues and perspectives, willingness and commitment, clear and shared goals, mutual benefit buy-in, trusting relationships, the right skills, the knowledge, behaviors and support structures, appropriate governance arrangements, and senior leadership commitment. Just a few to start with.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ron. Shontelle.
Some operating principles that spring to mind would be, for example, respect others when you have meetings with them. So allow persons to share their views without being interrupted. That's just one thing you can have in your suite of operating principles. Another two would be show up on time for meetings, or say when you're running late. So that's respecting other person's time, as well as prepping before having collaborative meetings with others. Again, that goes to respecting individuals' time and their effort. So those are just three operating principles that I think may be useful for you to state in terms of getting your teams together to function effectively.
Thanks, Shontelle. Now, I have to agree with you there on all of those. I'll add in a few secs. Martin, your thoughts?
I wanted to agree with Ron and Chantal as well, but I would like to add a couple of things. The first one is that we can create some kind of operating principles for our, let's say, technical environment, how we use this technical environment to collaborate, to communicate with the team. That's one point. Another point is that Chantal already mentioned that there can be some kind of ground rules. But what I really miss a little bit, there should be some kind of operating principles for team leader as well. It's not just for the team; it's for the person who leads the team. And yeah, there must be communication to people. There must be transparency. There must be trust into the team, etc., etc. So without let's say, appropriate behavior of all involved, not just the team, but team leader as well. Even environment around the team is very important for collaboration.
Thank you, Martin. And thanks, everybody. I think, this is a topic which sows a lot of discussion. But one thing I just wanted to very briefly mention is this can be much, much more challenging now that we're all, or most of us, are working in a remote environment. And I think that the remote environment puts a lot of pressure on people, particularly when we're talking about time scheduling. So a little tip there might be just to add a little bit of time in between meetings, because nowadays it's kind of expected that you schedule a meeting back to back. Yeah, that puts people under enormous pressure. One meeting ends at 9:59 or 10 o'clock on the dot, and when you're 1 minute late for the next one, which starts at 10 o'clock, people tend to get upset. Now, that isn't really productive at all and doesn't really foster a spirit of collaboration. So start thinking about how to do that in a remote environment. Maybe scheduling a 10-minute break in between is something that could help. Okay, Suchitra, may we have our next question, please?
Our next question is, does technology really help us collaborate?
Okay, Martin, why don't you kick us off on this, and then we'll go to Shontelle.
Let's start with the consulting answer. It depends. My answer is yes and no, because technology can really help us to build collaborative environment we need to communicate together, especially how you mentioned, especially now in a remote environment when we work from different parts of the world. We are not in the office and so on. So technology is absolutely necessary. So yes, it can help us. On the other hand, we should not rely just on the technology. And I could see that in so many companies that they implemented collaborative tools. They train people how to use them. And at that moment, they started to think, hey, we have a tool, we know how to use it, and we collaborate. It doesn't help at all. So we cannot rely just on the tool. It's just a vehicle that can enable us to communicate and collaborate.
Martin, I totally agree. I think you're absolutely right there. I've seen myself, so many organizations implement different bits of tech thinking that they're going to solve all the collaboration problems, but actually it ends up just introducing more. So it's all about attitude, isn't it? Okay, fantastic. Yep. Shontelle, what are your thoughts?
I totally agree with Martin. Technology is the vehicle. It sets up the environment for collaboration to take place. But individuals need to be trained on how to collaborate effectively. So they need to understand others and other personality types and, their role as well in order to collaborate effectively. So you can have, a fantastic tool in place, but collaboration may not be happening because, there are issues with different personalities, etc. So technology is great. It should be there. It should be in place. But I think what's at the heart of collaboration is understanding people and how to get the best out of them.
Totally agree with you, Shontelle. I think that one of the challenges here is people not understanding other personality types. Not only not understanding other personality types, but not really having enough empathy for those personality types. So one thing we found was quite helpful in my past role as a consultant was doing things like the Belbin team roles, right? Which just helps people to understand what type of person is in your team, right? So that can be very useful as well. Caroline, what are your thoughts?
Well, I feel like if you mean email, my answer is no. Email does not help you to collaborate. It is, if I could achieve one thing in my life, it would be to get people to stop attaching documents to email in order to collaborate on a document. There are a number of organizations that I've seen who've implemented, for example, Office 365 and haven't explored the tools that are available in that toolset and are not using it effectively is quite staggering. You're paying for technology and you're not using it. And it boils down to the training, which I think Martin was mentioning, that we can't just assume, yes, I've plugged in this technology, we have it. Now everyone's going to use it. People are going to use what they're familiar with. Usually it's email. So you need to have some kind of change management process to get people away from email towards the tools that enable knowledge sharing, working out loud, and people to see what's going on and find the information that they need when they need it.
Fantastic advice there. Completely agree with everybody. I think that not being able to understand the technology that you put in place is a huge barrier to enabling collaboration, for sure. Right? And coming back to training people on it, it should be run as a change management project. Essentially, quite right. I've worked in many organizations where tech has been implemented, and we've got some wonderful tech, really, that could do a lot of good things for you. Mm-hmm. But most of the office staff have no idea that it's there or how to use it. So yeah. And that can be quite a challenge for sure. All right. Suchitra, may we have our next question, please?
A question from Stefan. When hiring new team members, how can we ensure that they are a good fit and possess the correct skills to work within a collaborative team?
Okay. Now, this is quite a challenge. We're kind of delving a little bit into the HR side of things here. So who'd like to have a crack at this? Martin, why don't you start us off and then Shontelle?
Okay, you mentioned that we somehow step into HR environment, and because I have technical background, I'm definitely not HR. So let's start from this perspective. Technical people, when they hire new team members, they usually concentrate on technical skill set. We need good programmer, we need good database administrator and stuff like that. And they completely forget to specify other, let's say, qualities of that person. They completely forget to define what kind of culture we want to have, what kind of behavior we want to have. And I believe that this is integral part of, let's say, request for new team member. And when we discuss, when we do interview with new candidates, then we have to watch not only technical skills but those qualities as well. And as a technical people, we usually concentrate on content. So it's always good to have somebody else sitting next to me who can watch other aspects of that candidate, because then we can discuss that. And at the end of the day, perhaps that person, the best candidate, can really sit with the whole team together and see if chemistry already works.
Good point, Martin. Very good point. Absolutely. You're quite right. So many times I've seen, requests for new employees put in that literally it's just a technical list. We need the person to have, this skill, that skill, that skill, and it's all technical. But nothing to do with, do they understand the business model that we're in? Do they, what is their team interaction experience in the past? Do they have the capability to actually interact with this team? So, yeah, very good point. Shontelle.
And just to follow on from what Martin said, some good questions to ask a candidate who is, looking for a role in a collaborative environment. You could possibly ask them, what experience do you have working as a part of a team previously, just to see if they have the requisite skills. You can also ask them questions such as, pull some scenario questions based on real life team working experiences and ask them, what would you do in this particular situation? Just to gauge how they work or they will work within that particular team. And as Nigel mentioned before, using tools such as Belbin really helps because it gives you a good understanding of where they would fit within the team. Are they a plant? Are they a completer finisher? Or are they someone who is best suited for research or a specialist skill? So you can use those three techniques just off the top of my head.
Fantastic. Thanks, Shontelle. I think that just to close this question off, how to hire new team members is something that literally every organization struggles with. It's very difficult, even through the interview process, to really understand what kind of person you are hiring. So how do you really know? And the answer is you don't, which is probably why we have probation periods in many organizations. But the success and failure of a new team member often really isn't dependent so much on the team member, but how we have defined the culture within our organization and how well it's understood. Yeah. Quite often we have two different cultures, the one that we really want to perceive, people to perceive, and the real culture behind it. So quite often, quite right, coming back to things like Belbin, Myers-Briggs, those kind of things, they are tools, but they do help initially. But, any skilled HR professional will be able to help you with this matter. So, for sure. Okay, Suchitra, may we have our next question, please?
We have a question from our live LinkedIn viewer, Carolina. There are examples when people can't respond and collaborate. Do you have any advice on how to improve communication or encourage them to be involved?
Okay. Martin, start us off on this, please.
You already mentioned that next to Belbin team roles, we have MBTI typology of personalities and so on. So first, we have to know who we are. It means what are our qualities, strengths, weaknesses, and so on. And we need to know that for other people in the team as well. And team is usually built in the way that we support each other, that the strengths of one person somehow balance weakness of another person. So from this perspective, when we know each other, when we know our strengths and weaknesses, we can help people. That's one point. The second point is we have to work as a team. If there is no trust, people will never communicate. And it starts from here.
Yeah, Martin, I totally agree with you. I think that there are so many examples here, though, of when people can't respond and collaborate. Many. I think every organization probably has a lot of these in place. One thing that I've always found it comes down to is weak leadership. It typically ends up being a trust-related issue. People get, burnt by something. Something happens within the team. The consequences are not pleasant for them, or it was something where they didn't feel like they could participate. Were made to, or were belittled, or something like that. And that really comes down and back again to the culture, right? Now, of course, you get people that are really shy, and that needs to be taken into account as well. So how can you improve communication or encourage them to be involved? Well, involve them. Okay. not everybody will be the type of outgoing personality to jump in and get involved, right? So you need to start off small and start actively involving people into those tasks. Start giving them responsibility and start building their trust. Okay, so I think we've got a couple of other folks that would like to join in here. Ron, would you like to join in?
Yes, I think one of the things is if you do find an individual that is shy, as you call them, it's mentoring them into a situation where they become comfortable with collaboration. It's not going to happen overnight, because if they're naturally shy, if they're naturally not outgoing or whatever, you're going to have to sort of nurture them along. And you can tell whether they are going to become collaborative or not through that mentorship. But I think mentorship is one of the key things that you can help with.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic idea. And thanks for bringing that up, Ron. Caroline, what are your thoughts?
In cross-cultural communications, there are a lot of studies have been done about how we are parts of different types of culture. So it could be nationality, it could be ethnicity, but it could also be the type of team that we're in or the type of environment that we're in. So we slot into the culture. So you'll see it in the way they dress for a specific thing. You'll see how you encourage a type of culture in a specific environment for a specific team. That culture will allow people to step up. However, and as Ron and Nigel have been alluding to, your personality traits will influence whether or not you are able to step forward, and that takes mentorship. However, there's another layer, which is our base culture, where, say, for example, are we part of a very verbal, very individualistic culture, or are we part of a collective, non-verbal culture? So, for example, there was a social study where students from Japan were placed into university in America, and students from America were placed into university in Japan. Both groups complained that they couldn't learn. The Japanese couldn't learn because they said the Americans won't stop talking in class. The Americans said they can't learn because nobody talks. And we have to be very sensitive, especially in a multinational environment, cross collaboration, to the base culture of people and the type of expectation they have around norms and what is polite, what is collaboration. I think it's very important to be sensitive to that as well.
Totally agree. I think, Martin, you wanted to add back in here quickly.
Very quickly, I could hear a couple of things, and we maybe completely forget that there should be somebody who will facilitate the discussion in the team, somebody who will make sure that everybody can be heard, everybody can speak, and so on. And based on personalities, those people can use appropriate techniques. And one of them, for example, or one example, is that we all know brainstorming, where we can exchange our ideas. But instead of talking, we can do brain writing. We can write it down on yellow post-its. We can put it on the wall. And then you can eliminate shy issue or language issue or culture issue and stuff like that. So as a facilitator, a good facilitator can really use appropriate techniques based on the knowledge of people and eliminate some weaknesses with those techniques.
Fantastic. Great advice there from everybody. Thank you. I think one of the things that I've found works quite well for this is to explain to people within the team what the customer journey actually is. Yeah? Starting from the building, if you're building a product, for example, starting from the inception of building that product right through to the termination, or the putting the product out to pasture, so to speak. What is the life cycle? How do your customers get involved? How do your suppliers get involved? What is your role within the team? So people understand holistically what you're actually doing from A to Z. And that really does help. So we've got a lot of social activity going on at the moment. So welcome everybody who's putting in some chats into our LinkedIn and YouTube pages. Owen, thank you very much. Amazing contribution, Martin. Welcome, by the way, Owen. And just want to encourage everybody, please pop your chat in, say hi, get involved. We'd love to hear from you. Charlotte, I think Suchitra, should we say, let's have our next question, please.
Question from Diane, our live YouTube viewer. Are factors such as digitalization and remote working challenges to a collaborative culture?
Okay. I think the simple, short answer to this is yes, but let's hear from Ron.
I was going to say yes. Oh, you've got your two. You've got your two, and you've got your hybrid. You've got your in-person hybrid, and you've got your totally virtual. The problem with virtual is that you can never really get to know the individuals properly that you're collaborating with. And when I say properly, I mean all you see is this bit of them, yeah, and you don't see their body language. You don't, you just see the way their eyes go, etc., etc. Whereas an in-person event, yes, obviously you can, but there's an art to virtual collaboration, and I think virtual collaboration is more about just exchanging ideas on a whiteboard or virtual whiteboard, or written collaboration, or using Google Forms or whatever. So it's a totally different perspective, and the hybrid one, I wouldn't even go there, because I think a hybrid version of part in person, part virtual, is probably more difficult than either of the first one or the third one. But virtual, you have to stick at it. You have to learn about how best you can collaborate with people, and how you can get the best out of them in terms of what you want from them.
Yeah, Ron, I totally agree. I think that there's a lot involved in this, though. And hybrid is difficult. Hybrid is arguably more difficult than 100% virtual. So quite true. Martin, what are your thoughts?
I wanted to answer in the same way like when we discussed technology, yes and no. So there are always two aspects, but I will come or I will start with what you said at the end. When you have hybrid environment, you have to keep in mind that there is never enough communication, and especially danger, because I was working in an environment like that in the past. The biggest danger is that some people are, let's say, on site in place. They can physically meet, they can discuss that, even unofficially during lunch, during coffee or stuff like that. And because they discuss that, they have a feeling that everybody knows that. But there are remote people, remote members, but they don't know that. So especially with remote people, you have to double communication, because you have to keep them involved. Otherwise, they will feel separated from the rest of the team. That's one point. Another point is that when I come back, we have situation as it is. We had COVID, and nobody could imagine that for 2 years we will be locked down at home, and we will not be able to go into the office. So we had to use virtual tools, and we had to learn how to use them. That's definitely a challenge. On the other hand, it's a huge opportunity, because you can see this discussion, this round table. There are people from around the globe, and suddenly you have more possibilities, and it's exciting. It's really interesting to see people from opposite side of the globe discuss their opinions, and then there is, let's say, energy, and there is a willingness to work with them, because it's interesting. It's not the same like your daily work. So digital or remote work, digitalization and remote work can help as well, because it can motivate people to collaborate. And it's a really great opportunity.
Totally agree with you there. COVID did some bad things to us, but it also brought along some, I feel, good changes in terms of remote working, for sure. So, Caroline, we'll come to you next, and then Shontelle.
Thank you. I think for me, hybrid working has to have a change in the way of our philosophy, our fundamental understanding about how we're going to communicate and the types of communication we need to achieve. For me, the underpinning success to remote work is you need to understand that you're also dealing with knowledge management. You're making knowledge available to people when they need it. Now, for someone to find the right information at the right time, or find the right person with the right information at the right time, when you're working in a fully remote environment, it can be quite challenging because you don't have those incidental conversations. You haven't got that sort of overhearing a conversation at the cooler or hearing somebody speaking at lunch about something. The tools, I think the platforms and the tools that we have available now, and I'm going to talk about Office 365 because that's where I've done most of my work. There are tools, for example, in Office 365, for example, there's one called Delve, D-E-L-V-E, that bubbles up information to you. There are ways for you to pull information and to find information. You need to have good electronic findability. So enterprise search is something that you need to do by design to enable hybrid teams to find the information they need. And then you need to educate everybody on how to narrate their work, how to make sure that other people can find the work that they have been working on, to find their contribution, or even to find them. One very easy step is have a look at your structure for whether you're using Active Directory or whether you're using Google or whatever. Is there a place that I can go to if I'm new in your organization? Can I go somewhere to find an expert on a topic? Is there something that's an easy way for me to digitally discover the person who will have the information I need? Or if I search for something, will I bubble up the information I need? And I think that's a critical part of hybrid work.
Yeah, I totally agree. Fantastic. Okay, Shontelle, let's have your thoughts.
So I've had a slightly different experience where digitalization was necessary for collaboration to take place effectively. So I worked on quite a number of digitalization projects over the past 5 years. And even within my team, for example, we would have massive documents to work on where individuals would have to input into different sections. And what we would do is we would devote, let's say, 2 hours of time for the team to log in and access the document, work on their individual sections, but also have the flexibility to ask other individuals for input into their section. And that was absolutely fantastic. We got to sit down and do work and also collaborate with others in a digital environment. And it made, work a lot easier, and output was seamless. So digitalization, for me, in my experience, really helped with collaboration, especially during COVID, where remote working was the only path one could take.
Absolutely agree. So, when I look back in this and I see, are factors such as digitalization and remote working challenges to a collaborative culture? Yes, they probably are challenges to a collaborative culture, but at the end of the day, they are also collaboration opportunities. Yep, very much so. So I think we've got time for some more social commentary coming up. We've got quite a few people online now. Owen, we've welcomed already. So who else have we got online now? Wow, okay. Abhishek, welcome. So transparency and visibility of information is more difficult in hybrid collaboration. That's exactly what we are saying. We agree with you there. It is. It's really important to surface information properly. Yep, very, very interesting. So welcome, everybody. Keep your comments coming. We love them. Let's keep them going. Okay. Suchitra. Nick has given us one here. Simple mantra to improve collaboration is to construct your meetings around questions, not presentations. Brilliant idea. Level Up is an exemplar of this. Great. Thanks, Nick. Suchitra, may we have our next question, please?
We have another live question from Tom, who's watching us on LinkedIn. Do you think with shortlisted candidates viewing in a social situation with the team is a better way to judge character than a formal interview setting?
Interesting. Shortlisting candidates viewing in a social situation. That is something I have heard of people doing before. Anybody got any comments on this? Ron, what are your thoughts?
I've been in this situation probably half a dozen times when I was with my consulting boots on. This was in the UK, because I worked on the contract market, and there was about half a dozen occasions where they got groups of people together, yeah, to see how they interacted with each other. Yeah, they also had how can I put it, an infiltrator from the company who we found out about later, who would ask people questions just as though they were friends, as though they were part of the group. And it was a very interesting exercise. I mean, one was held at a football ground, Stoke City football ground, which was incredible, you know. And we got shown around and stuff like that. But it's an interesting situation where you are in a group of people who are vying for the same role as you, and you kind of have to demonstrate over and above them that you are the right person for this role that involves all this collaboration. So it's a kind of bit of a bun fight, to be honest, if, to put it unpolitely. But they were interesting scenarios, I've got to say.
I can imagine, absolutely. So, I have quite a few thoughts on this. Yes, I think there is a positive outcome to be had by putting people into a social environment before you do the actual employment or selection of folks. But as Ron just intimated to us, it does create a kind of a false perception of that person. It can, particularly if you have more than one candidate, 3, 4, or 5 people around. It ends up being a competition. And you don't really get the true nature of that person. You don't really get a really 100% accurate feel as to whether that person will fit in the team or not. So I would advise, be cautious with it. Yeah, it might be different or better to do it in very small groups of people, shortlisted people, yes, yeah, but maybe in individual groups. Okay, so you've got one person with a couple of folks from the company, and you talk through in a social setting, a relaxed setting, on how that person might or might not fit. I think the most important thing is to understand that person's values, their trustworthiness, and so on. Yeah, so very, very interesting, but difficult to do. I think that's the shortened answer there. Okay, Suchitra, may we have our next question, please?
Another live question from Abu Bakr. How will you work in a team where the leadership enjoys divide and rule?
Martin, start us off, please.
Very, very shortly, I will not work in that team.
That's a very good and short answer, and I think a lot of people also feel that way. Caroline, I think you had some thoughts on this.
I think it boils down to your value system. You've got to make sure that if you're working in a collaborative environment, that you agree with the mission and you agree with the way that it's being achieved. And I think very often we try to squeeze ourselves into a situation where we don't have the same value system.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is exactly it, right? Trying to discover what the value system of the company is. Do you really want to work in a divide and conquer environment? Depends. Maybe you enjoy it, but I certainly wouldn't. Agree with Martin on that one. Ron, you had some thoughts on this.
I kind of look at it from another perspective. It's a bit like managing resistance. If you can convert the resistor into a supporter, then they are your best asset. So I would kind of challenge the status quo, and I have done from a change management perspective. If you challenge the status quo, there's always the chance, and it is a chance, that you can convert the unconvertible. But it's a difficult situation to work in, and it depends on what kind of character you are. And I don't mind speaking up and saying things that maybe I shouldn't say sometimes. But yes, I believe in challenging.
Absolutely. And I think challenging can really work in that type of environment as well. It can also lead to disaster. But Shontelle, I'm just going to ask you from a change management perspective, you must have faced this scenario many, many times, right? So how do you normally deal with this?
Well, usually leadership sets the tone for their team or the company. So whatever let's say values they hold or ways of working they hold is usually what it is. And usually team members would follow their ways of working. But I agree with Ron, and especially if an individual has a certain amount of political power or status in the organization, they could probably change the status quo by doing things differently and challenging leadership capabilities and ways of working. So I agree with Ron. It would take a very strong person. Personality does matter. Someone with power and authority could probably change the way leadership is working in the organization.
Okay. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. I totally agree with you. Very difficult to change the way leadership operates, particularly if it's a long-standing leadership that's been operating, like this for many, many years. People tend to enjoy it. They're doing it because they're enjoying it, right? So changing it around, it's not an easy task. But it requires willingness as well to want to change. Okay. Suchitra, can we have our next question, please?
We have another live question from Nick, who's watching us on YouTube. Does the panel agree improving our facilitation skills is key to building a culture of collaboration?
Interesting question. Very interesting question. Does facilitation skills increase or improve our culture of collaboration? Shontelle, kick us off on this one, please.
I would agree with that statement. Being able to facilitate, especially if you're a team leader, would help with collaboration within the team. It would ensure that everyone's voice is being heard and everyone has a chance to speak. And I think we would have chatted about it earlier in the show about, the shy persons who may not want to voice their opinion. Being able to facilitate a team meeting would be able to bring those thoughts from those individuals to the forefront, as well as I think it was also mentioned about using sticky notes and brainstorming sessions. So yes, definitely, I agree that facilitation skills can help build a culture of collaboration, especially from a team leader's perspective.
Fantastic, Shontelle. Great thoughts there. I just want to mention that if anybody really wants to know a little bit more about this, our next episode coming up on Level Up is all about facilitation. So be sure to tune into that one if you really want the answer to this, Nick. In fact, you will probably be on the show. But do I think that this is a key skill? Yes, it is a key skill. It's not the only skill, though, that's required to improve collaboration, but it is a key skill, definitely. Okay, Caroline, I think you had some thoughts on this as well, right?
So just quickly, I agree completely. I think facilitation is very key. It is something you can study. You can get certified in it. It's a good idea. Very fundamental to the agile environment. However, I feel like we have to be careful to make sure we are facilitating the correct way for the type of team and the type of project. Not every situation calls for the same type of communication. And I think facilitation gives you a lot of tools in your toolbox, but you have to be careful about which ones you use and how often you use it, given the type of team. And a book that I refer to very often is a book called As One. I have it here to show you. I'm not punting it. I just really enjoy it. I feel like it's a brilliant book. It talks about different types of teams, different types of leadership styles, and I think also as a team member, you could get a lot from reading it to understand what does my team need right now in terms of the type of project we're working on.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, if you want to put that link into the chat, Caroline, then we'll get it over to the folks on LinkedIn and YouTube so they can also have a look at that book. I'm sure we love giving out, the panelist recommendations on this for sure. So, yeah. Did anybody else have any comments on this point, Martin?
I just wanted to make a quick...
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay, Ron. You go ahead first.
Go ahead, Ron.
I just wanted to make a quick observation on how funny it is that all these words seem to end in ION. So you've got facilitation, collaboration, communication, participation, consultation, etc., etc. I call it doing the change ironing. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, Martin.
Just very quickly, I believe that facilitation is very important skill, and it's not very important just for team leader, but it's very important for anybody in the team. Because it's not the task or just not the task for the head of the team, but anybody can step out and facilitate meeting, because team leader can be ill, can be on business trip, whatever. So I believe it belongs to each, let's say, skill set, especially when we work in a DevOps or agile environment.
I totally agree. I think you just raised a point there. Agile environment, right? I was going to mention that usually in our experience, environments that are agile in their nature or have focused or put a lot of focus into building themselves into agile are by nature much more collaborative than those that are not. So perhaps there's something to that. People should have a look into how to become agile. Yes, Martin.
Very quick comment, but be careful, because in many cases I could see in companies that they do agile or not agile, Scrum by the book. So no discussion about that. There are rules 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have to do it, and then they think they are agile, but they are not agile.
Quite right. We
So
certainly
it's not
witnessed.
agile as agile. So be careful.
Martin, I love chatting to Martin. He's always got some strong viewpoints. And you're absolutely right, though, Martin. I think that Scrum is definitely not agile, and I don't think any of us would think anything different. But again, we have a really, really great resource in Level Up. We've done a lot of episodes on how to become agile. What is true agile? What is agile thinking? How do you really do that? So have a look back on our episode searches and you'll find a lot of answers to that. All right, I think we've got time for a couple more questions. So Suchitra, may we have the next question, please?
Another live question from Diane. Are employee recognition systems important when building a culture of collaboration?
Very, very interesting question, this. So what are the panelists' thoughts on this one? Anybody agree with this? Caroline, what are your thoughts? Kick us off.
Tread with caution. Just make it fair. If you're going to do it, make it fair. Don't create an environment one-upping people, and don't create an environment where people are overlooked because their contribution hasn't been valued according to the criteria. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. And that's a very good point. That's a very, very good point, because I think that you run a high risk there of alienating people when the heroes of the team are the ones that are constantly being rewarded because they're the most outspoken, or the ones who have that personality that they're quite happy to move, to the forefront, and they end up getting rewarded. So it has to be very fair and has to be well thought through in order to work. Martin, your thoughts?
I just wanted to say that if you want to have culture of collaboration, you should not recognize individual employees. You should recognize the whole team.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good point. You should be recognizing the whole team. We're talking about collaboration here, not promoting individual heroes. So, yeah. Very, very good point. Okay. Anybody else want to add anything to this one before we move on to the next one?
I was just going to answer exactly the same as Martin. Yeah, it's not about individuals. Yeah, what are we doing here? What exactly are we doing? We're trying to achieve something together as a team. Yeah. So why recognize individuals within that team? No point.
Totally agree. And I think this comes down to defining your company culture. Defining the company culture is probably so important if you really want to understand how to collaborate or to achieve true collaboration. That unfortunately starts at the top, right? It starts at the top and it filters down through the rest of the organization. So getting the top leadership and top management in an organization to really understand that their employees are the ones that are the true value of the company. Yeah? And are they actually collaborating, or are they fostering that culture of collaboration? It's not easy to do. It just really isn't. But I encourage all company leaders and managers out there, take a good, hard inward look at yourself as to whether or not you are really fostering that culture of collaboration as opposed to the divide and conquer approach. Okay, I think we've got time for one more question if we are fairly brief. So, Suchitra, what is our last question for today?
We have a question from Emma Vernon, who's watching on LinkedIn. How can we role model collaboration?
Fantastic question. How can we role model collaboration? Who would like to kick us off on this one? Shontelle?
I will go. To role model anything within the organization has to come from leadership. Leadership sets the tone for how things are done in the organization. They set the tone for ways of working. And my view is that if leadership can model what a collaborative environment looks like in terms of doing it within their own meeting so that persons have some idea of how it is done and how it is done well. That can set the tone for having a collaborative environment embedded within the culture. So my view is if leadership is on board and they can model that, it has a good is going to be adopted by the majority of individuals within the organization.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shontelle. Caroline, you have some thoughts on this as well?
I just want to share another link. It's the idea of creating circles in the organization. So I absolutely agree. I think leadership has got to take the role. You can't, as a team, as bottom up, create this environment. And I think one of the ways that leadership can invest in creating is to create circles where you very deliberately build the skills required to communicate effectively and to share knowledge effectively. So I've shared a link on what is working out loud and how to create circles that enable a culture of more communication.
Fantastic. Thank you, Caroline, for that. Ron, I believe you have...
Yeah, I was just going to say that I totally agree with Shontelle. Everything comes from leadership. And what I would suggest is there's a very, very simple model that McKinsey brought out some while ago. It's called the 4 levers of influence. Okay. And what it says is the individual says, I will change my mindset if I see my leaders and managers doing what they want me to do. Yeah, and I think that's a very, very important point to make. Yeah, it all stems from leadership, and I think that goes back to why I said I would also challenge leadership if they are, that kind of, command and control leadership.
Yeah,
McKinsey's 4 levers of influence. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. We'll try and get that link over to folks as well, if somebody can put that into the chat. Yeah, it's a very good point that you make there. Challenging a command and control leadership style can carry with it some risks. Yeah? So I think it's very interesting to do it, but you have to be rather careful about how you do it. And maybe this comes back to the facilitation skills, right, that we need. Okay, Martin, your thoughts.
I just wanted to agree with all panelists that definitely we need to see example. And if we want to see collaborative organization, then top management, top leadership, doesn't matter how we call it, board of directors, they have to collaborate. They have to show that they are team. They don't do the politics and stuff like that. And then we are willing to follow them. That's one point. But on the other hand, if we don't see that, and we can see the benefits of collaboration, then we should remind ourselves that there is only one person we can change, ourselves. So if I don't see that above me and I need to collaborate with people around me or below me, then I have to act in that way. I don't need to wait for top management, but I have to be that example. And maybe if somebody from top management will see positive results of that collaboration, maybe they will change themselves as well.
Very, very good point. Absolutely. Fantastic point. Caroline, your thoughts?
I just want to say that I don't think top-down management is always a problem, right? There are industries and situations where it is absolutely necessary. And there are times when collaborating is not appropriate. And I think it's very important for team members to be sympathetic or to be understanding of when it is appropriate to collaborate and when top-down management is required. So for example, if you are in the middle of a data breach or a security incident, that is not the time for collaboration. Okay, that is a time for leadership. You have an incident commander, the person sets the rules, and you make things work. So I think we've got to be cautious about, and also top-down management, for example, in the medical industry, super necessary. You've got to have standards and controls in place, and I think we've got to be quite careful about making it sound like top-down management is a bad idea. It's not always a bad idea.
Yeah, Caroline, I totally agree with you there. In fact, that we all tend to think of our own industries, and perhaps we're in the best practices industry, that we're doing a lot of discussion on here, but there are so many different industries where top-down command and control is absolutely required. Think of a 911 call center as a prime example of that. So really good. So today, I would love to thank our producers. You guys have put in some fantastic questions today. Great job, really. Really, everybody, thank you so much. So watch out for your name on the credits, by the way. If you put in a live question, your name will appear in the credits. So panel, I think it's time for us to close off, unfortunately. We could probably spend another hour easily talking about this topic. But what I'd like to do is to walk around the panel in order, and we'll just get your closing comments. So, Caroline, I'd like to start with you, if you don't mind. Just let us have your closing comments.
I think having the right knowledge management practices, the right information management practices, philosophies like working out loud, and sympathy to culture are an incredibly important part of culture of the organization, as well as culture of the individuals that you're dealing with.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Ron, your thoughts, please.
I'd like to give a couple of examples of what I call classic, brilliant collaboration. One we witnessed recently, Her Majesty the Queen's funeral, God rest her soul. Now that was collaboration on a massive scale. And you can understand the amount of people that were involved in that had to make sure they were where they were supposed to be when they were, et cetera, et cetera. And then another example is football clubs. The amount of collaboration that you need in a football club, not only the football manager and the team, but all the backroom staff and the shareholders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is collaboration on a big scale.
Yeah.
I think that's just what I wanted to say.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ron. Martin, your final thoughts, please.
First of all, thanks a lot for all comments, all questions, all ideas from participants and from panelists as well. And just my summary or my comment at the end, when I could see preliminary questions, I was thinking we will discuss about skill set, we will discuss about technologies, and I was a little bit worried. And later on, I could see that we very quickly moved to culture and to real collaboration environment where I think it belongs.
Fantastic. Great thoughts there. Shontelle, your thoughts.
Thank you so much, the panelists. Your views were amazing. And just one parting thought from me. Collaboration is important for organizations. Being able to work as an individual is important as well. Knowing when to collaborate is essential. Having the right environment, the right tools, the right operating procedures, and having those known and widely communicated can help build that culture of collaboration. So don't give up the fight. It can be done. You just need to put some effort and some work into it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. And Suchitra, your final thoughts on today's show.
It's been a great show, Nigel, and I must thank all the panelists for their great views and our live questions. We've had some amazing live questions as well. And I can also add that an amazing example of collaboration is our very successful Level Up series, where we've been working together for almost a year now, and we've been successfully producing these shows week on week, twice a week. So that's another great example of collaboration.
I couldn't agree more. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the panelists. And, guys, you did a great job, and thank all of our producers. Wonderful. So over on our website, there are a lot of different bits of information there. Yeah. But I think what we should like to talk about is we can You can search for over 1,400 questions live, all asked live and answered live. It's a comprehensive free resource, okay? Connects you to 140 experts from around the world, okay? Don't forget, you can also listen to the audio versions of your preferred podcast platform. We have a lot on there as well. So this Friday, the 30th of September, we'll be looking at how to explore, facilitate like a pro. On Monday, the 3rd of October, that one, we'll be looking at how can you become a change leader. On Friday, the 7th, we are looking at a very special show, and we have something special planned for you because it is our 100th episode of Level Up. So we'll be looking at how we reach that milestone. That's an episode you definitely don't want to miss, so please stay tuned in for that one. All right, subscribe to the show, and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the next show.